Hello everybody, I am Jim Coppinger, one of the founders and the technical lead here at ZenTek Consultants. And the question that I want to hit on today is, how do you stop people from working off out-of-date construction documents? And this is, man, it's just a topic that I hear every single day. Right? The reality is, when we're dealing with construction documentation, there's so much of it, right? So many things that we have to work with every single day from the office and, more importantly, out into the trailers, out in the field. Things that are always biting us in the butt, right? Communication problems, fragmented information, manual processes like printing out construction documents and specs and keeping them in the trailer and not getting them updated all the time. All of those different issues, I think, really, they're a threat, right, to your project progress, and they increase the likelihood of errors, right? So, when you're talking about project documentation, we're talking about everything on your job, right? We're not just talking about your construction documents, your drawing files. Those are huge, right? We've got to have the drawings centralized where everybody can see them. What are the latest revisions? What are the latest options? But we're also talking about the specifications. We're talking about the RFIs. We're talking about the submittals. We're talking about contracts and bid changes and, different events that have occurred and inspection information and insurance data. There's so much documentation that we have to control on a construction job. And that's really the problem, right? You run into this issue of people working off out-of-date construction documents. And I've seen it and I've heard about it, like I said, every single day, where, someone's going out and the field guy is just saying, okay, I looked at the plans that were rolled up in the back of my truck, or I'm working off what I bid off of 4 months ago, and I'm going in and I'm doing the work. And they do that work, right? And it's the wrong process. It's the wrong information. So now everything's going to have to be ripped out. It's going to have to be redone. Materials are going to have to be reordered, right? Parts are going to have to be, shipped in, and it's going to delay the entire project, all because you didn't have a centralized location with the ability to not just update the documentation, but to maintain markups, edits, and comments. And that's huge, right? All too often we forget. We're like, well, I can print out a 24 by 36 and I keep a roll of documents in the trailer on a table and everybody refers to them, and I print it periodically. Setting aside the cost of that, which is crazy high, the thing is that there are always going to be markups and red lines and comments and thoughts and notes that we have to put onto these plans and onto these contracts and specs that everybody needs to be aware of. And every time you throw out the old set of plans and you bring in revision 4 and you throw out revision 3, you lose all of that information that everybody's written and modified and adjusted onto those manual plans. That's where getting into a central storage structure, right? A centralized location in the cloud that everybody can access and have the most current version and the real-time information of not just the design, but also of the comments, changes, as-built, and modifications as they happen. Right? And then really, I guess to kind of get back to the question, right? How do we stop people from working off out-of-date construction documents? We do it with a construction management system. And there are a lot of them out there on the market. There, Procore, Autodesk Construction Cloud, whichever one you use, doesn't matter. Construction management systems give you the ability to put all of this documentation into a single space that's out on the cloud that's accessible anywhere, anytime, 24/7. And I think that they work particularly well on medium-sized to large projects, right? And I guess that's kind of where those construction management systems live. But I will say there are other options, right? For smaller jobs, you can just use cloud-based file storage hosting sites. Things like Bluebeam Studio is an excellent alternative. I will say a bad approach to this, and I've seen way too many people try to do this, is, hey, I'm just going to put this file on my SharePoint site. Well, now you've got all kinds of issues with your IT group about access and, security controls and people who can't download it and people who don't have online access at any given time. All right. Or other things like, Dropbox and similar sites. Well, those are okay. The problem that you run into with those is it's the same as having the old revision 1 plan sitting in your trailer. Edits, modifications, updates, notes, agreements, those are not being tracked when all you're doing is uploading a file. right? And that's where, like I said, tools like Studio and others that are similar that give you the ability to mark up and modify and add that information into your construction documentation, your agreements, etc. Those are vital. Right? So there are a lot of different ways, a lot of different construction technologies out there that give you that ability. But the idea that, I can centralize the current drawing file, right? Or thousands of them all at once, doesn't matter. And every time that a revision happens, every time that the engineer or the architect updates or changes, or if we have to make some kind of a real world modification or update because, the field installer just tells you it can't be built that way. Right? I used to love to work at a structural engineer I worked with for years who used to love to just point out to the architects, oh, it's a beautiful idea. I love your design. I'm going to mount a sky hook off a cloud and that'll hold that up for you. And that's the kind of stuff that happens. In the real world, we have to make adjustments and modifications. But if we don't have one location where we can keep those adjustments, keep those modifications, the changes and the markups, then we run into incredibly expensive, incredibly time-consuming reworks to fix all of those errors, right? So everybody, y'all should be looking, no matter how big, no matter how small you are, if you don't have it in place today, or if you're not sure how to use it, you guys really have to spend the time, the effort to get all of your people familiar and comfortable working inside of a construction management software system so that they always have a central, up-to-date, real-world point of truth for all your construction documents. There you go. There's your simple answer for today. Catch you next time, guys.